You know what's strange? We've spent years talking about the clash of generations, as if it's a two-sided war between the boomers and the zoomers. But while everyone was busy fighting for the spotlight, a specific group of people was quietly taking over the controls. They're the ones who remember a world where you could actually disappear for an entire afternoon. Yet they're the ones currently keeping our digital infrastructure from collapsing. They were the original slackers who grew up to be the most anti-fragile people on the planet. Generation X. Born roughly between 1965 and 1980. In 2026, the world is louder and more divided than ever. But here's the truth that nobody's talking about. Gen X isn't just the middle child of history anymore. They're the psychological firewall of modern society. And here are the specific, often ignored facts about why they are the ones who are going to save us. If you look at the Fortune 500 right now, you'll notice something fascinating. While headlines focus on 20-something tech founders or 80-year-old politicians, Gen X has quietly moved into the cockpit. A 2024 study by World Business Outlook found that over 68% of all leadership roles globally are now held by Gen X. But they lead differently. Psychologists call it stealth leadership, because they grew up in the latchkey era, where they had to make their own dinner and solve their own problems at age 9. They don't lead through ego or personal branding. They lead through high contingency competence. They don't want to be influencers, they want to be fixers. In a crisis, you don't need a visionary with a ring light, you need the person who's been managing chaos since they were in 3rd grade. Gen X holds a unique psychological title. They are the digital refugees. They're the last generation that will ever exist that truly understands the before times. They're the only generation that is truly bilingual. They can navigate a high-level AI interface with one hand and fix a physical, mechanical engine with the other. This gives them a double consciousness. They remember what it was like to have a conversation without a phone on the table. In 2026, as AI and digital deepfakes make it harder to tell what's real, Gen X has a built-in BS detector. Psychologically, they have higher cognitive patience. They don't need the immediate dopamine hit of a notification because their brains were wired in an era where you had to wait a week for a new episode of your favorite show. They're the only ones left who can fact-check the digital world using analog common sense. There's a famous Gen X catchphrase, whatever. For years, it was seen as a sign of apathy. But in 2026, whatever has become a psychological defense mechanism against the outrage economy. Gen X grew up during the peak of the Cold War and the height of corporate cynicism. They saw the American dream get outsourced and the nuclear family get disrupted by record-high divorce rates. Psychologically, this created moral autonomy. They're the hardest demographic to cancel or manipulate because their self-worth isn't tied to an online community. They are peer independent. A study in the Journal of Adult Development shows that Gen Xers are significantly less likely to change their opinions based on social media trends compared to millennials or Gen Z. They're the adults in the room who aren't afraid to be unpopular if it means being right. Perhaps the most impressive fact about Gen X in 2026 is their social stamina. They're currently the most squeezed generation in human history. They are the sandwich generation, providing financial and emotional support for their aging boomer parents, while simultaneously supporting their boomerang adult children, who are struggling with the housing market. They're the only generation currently funding 3 different lifestyles. This has forced them to develop a level of hyper-pragmatism. They don't buy things for the aesthetic. They buy things that solve problems. They're the ones holding the social fabric together, acting as the emotional mediators between the idealism of the young and the tradition of the old. The truth is, we don't need more influencers or pundits. We need the fixers. We need the people who've been holding things together with duct tape, grit, and sarcasm since 1978. Generation X might be the forgotten generation, but in a world that's lost its way, the people who know how to find home without a GPS are the ones who can lead the way. They'll save us, not because they want the credit, but because they're the only ones who remember where the manual is kept. If you're a Gen Xer who's currently carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, we see you. And if you're glad someone is finally pointing out who's actually running the show, please subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member. I would genuinely appreciate you.